So what I'm doing here is I'm blocking in the shapes that I've identified within my piece. So I'm starting with the sky, just getting quite a flat colour to start with, and then I'm going to add some water to this to suggest some clouds. So moving along shape by shape, trying to achieve perhaps a more graphic, edgy approach to it than normal. Okay, so I've got my flat colour in there, flattish, as flat as watercolour can be, and then I'm going to get some plain water and just put that into the colour, and this will push the pigment out and hopefully suggest sky. And I will have to be patient and let that dry to see what it comes out like, and whatever it comes out like I'm just going to accept, because it is quite hard to control. If you feel that you've put too much water on, just get a much drier brush and then put the paintbrush over the top of that, and then you'll be able to suck up a little bit more of that water that if you put down too much. So I've sucked up that, then I dry the brush a bit more, suck up a little bit more, and as you can see I'm getting a bit more control over that lighter shape, and maybe moving the paint around to suggest the softness of some clouds there. Using the same approach and then picking the next shape that I've picked out in the design. I'm going to not work on this while it's still a little bit wet, but I'm just moving into a shape that's further away from it, and I've exaggerated the colour a tad from the original because I want this to be a nice vibrant piece which focuses on graphic shape. Now I've blocked in a few of the areas, I'm going to tackle the architectural detail here. And there's two really dark areas here and here that I need to decide what kind of colours I'm going to use. I want it to be quite sympathetic in tone, use a limited palette. So I'm going to keep on with the pinky tones that I've got here. I'm going to add a little bit blue into it, I think. I'm going to use a combination of the colours, and I've come up with something that's a bit like an aubergine type of colour. So it's not really the colour that is, but I feel that it's sympathetic with it. So again, I'm going to block in, but I'm going to add a touch of variation in this tone so it's not completely flat. I'll see what I do as I go along. So for example, that's fairly flat blocked in here. Then before it's dry, what I'm going to do is get another colour. So there's my aubergine that I've mixed up out of the reds, blue and a little bit of brown. And now I'm going to add a little bit of that blue into it, just so that it's not a totally flat colour. So I'm just kind of using this to represent the stone, and again we'll just see how that dries. Okay, so done that section. Now I need to do a similar thing with the area that I consider to be the same depth of colour, which would be, I think, somewhere around here. So putting that fairly dark colour in first. So you're starting to see how that 100% pigment there is just pushing the paint around and just making that look a little bit more interesting, less flat. So now I'm going to do the same directly into the blue. Let that sit on there and see what happens with that. And then I'll continue along, identifying all that similar tonal value within the stonework, and use the same treatment on that. And then I'll work into the slightly lighter areas. So before this dries here, I'm going to lift out again with the paintbrush just to lighten it a little bit, because I feel like there's not quite enough contrast there. So I'm getting a brush that's got plain water on it, and I'm just painting it across the areas that I feel need highlights, seeing how that's drying, and if it's pushing the paint too much, then getting a dry brush in on top and trying to suck that over wetness back out again. Unfortunately, this piece here is probably dried too much already. I could try and re-wet it. So I just wanted a difference between the darker and the lighter sections, which I didn't feel was strong enough. So that's why I'm lifting back out again. Okay, now I can go back in now and define these darker areas. So I'm just creating a solid section here using this one treatment, and I'm just going to keep on going back into that until I'm happy. So I've got most of the blocked in areas that I want now, so I feel like it's starting to take shape. I'm just going to go into the dark window areas now, which will start to bring the whole thing together, and then I can start balancing up where I feel the tones need to align a little more. So we'll just do the window openings and then see where we are with that. So I'm just going to set about adding a bit more texture to this area of stonework, and I'm actually using quite dry watercolour here, so it's kind of almost straight out of the pan really, so it's not too wet. And I'm going to create this as a sort of contrast to the flat effect that I'm going to work on here with the buildings. So you just need to make sure that you've got lots of dark in the dark, and then you might want to put some white highlight perhaps on two areas such as this where you've got a lighter area, a highlight. So I'm going to keep working across the texture first, and then I'll go into the flat. So I'm pretty happy with the texture here at the front, and now I'm going to just add some deeper shadows into these window openings, but in a really flat shape, sort of poster way.